As female entrepreneurs who are often also moms and wives juggling multiple roles, it is so easy to fall into the trap of overwhelm and overwork. How do we find a way to manage our businesses and our goals and also make time to be present for our families and our own personal growth? Fletcher of Hiddy Co joins me on the podcast today to dig deep into the inner work that needs to happen to slow down, get more done, and why it is so important for women to become more financially savvy. Hiddy is an absolute gem with so much valuable insight about acknowledging what is truly important. In this particular time of uncertainty that we are facing, this episode is sure to get you thinking about how you can position your business to work for you and not against you so that you can truly live and work within your purpose and find fulfillment in it.
You're listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast with Jen Obermeyer. Thank you for joining in. Jen makes it her mission to broaden the horizons of savvy businesswomen in the organizing industry by instilling confidence and inspiring authenticity. She is a devoted business coach and founder of the Inspired Organizer program. You'll gain new insight into strategies designed specifically for professional organizers. And now, let's get started.
I am so excited to have on the podcast today a podcast friend and listener from Australia, and it's Hiddy Fletcher. Welcome, Hiddy.
Thank you so much. It's my absolute honor. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, Hiddy, there's a lot to introduce with you. I know that our audience of professional organizers is going to resonate for sure with the fact that you are a minimalist at heart. And I'm gonna ask you in a minute, was it always that way, or is that kind of part of your story, of your journey? But nowadays you do spend your time kind of coaching and educating and helping people through your online business. But your story is really fascinating, and I would love for you to tell it, like the way that all of this came to be. And then we're going to touch on how to slow down to get more done, which I know is something that a lot of professional organizers think about a lot, but it's very hard to do. So, Hiddy, I'm going to let you take it from here and sort of give us like the background of how you got where you are now.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm a digital educator, Jen. I do call myself a minimalist. I'm a mum and I'm an overcomer, and I'm an Australian country girl at heart. I live in a bush property on the east coast of Australia. Hopefully, maybe some of your listeners may know Byron Bay.
They do. We do have Australian listeners for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Byron Bay is on the east coast of Australia. It's a beautiful part of the world. I ride horses, renovate my little tiny house, and I create life-changing digital courses to help women banish busy and overwhelm. And I actually started my career as a hairdresser before moving into the exciting world of IT and digital education. And in that role, I created and delivered education programs. I traveled the globe. I spent a lot of time actually in the US teaching hairdressers and beauty therapists to use industry software programs and platforms to achieve better business productivity. And in that role also, I worked really closely with sales, marketing, R&D teams in all aspects of packaging product up for market and rolling out new technology across the world. So it was a very exciting role for me as a hairdresser, moving into the creative world of IT. And almost 5 years ago, actually, to the day, my life suddenly and tragically fell apart, and I experienced shock, grief, loss, heartbreak, you name it. I was completely blindsided by deceit and devastated by the breakdown of what I thought was a close and connected marriage. And in 2014, when I thought my life may be slowing and becoming more minimal and simplifying for me, and I actually also thought that I was healthy at that time and life was on the up and that I was actually living the dream, it turned into being a shocking, horrendous nightmare, and the world that I knew and had been building throughout my 20s and 30s just changed overnight. So the last 5 years have been spent rebuilding my life. I plummeted to the depths of despair. I had no self-confidence, no self-esteem. I was medicated for severe anxiety, depression, and I've spent the last 5 years redefining my values and my mission, and creating a life that is slower and more simpler before, while at the same time actually achieving more than ever before. And I've dug back into my tech skills and life experience to use those to empower busy mums to make positive change, embrace slow, and live large with less.
Okay, incredible. I always think it's amazing when someone like you is able to take a a tough and challenging experience, but also a deeply transformative experience, and turn it into something that is helpful and transformative for other people and other women. And in your case, it's incredible how how quickly really you've been able to kind of pull those key lessons that you learned from that time and put them into a business where you can serve others and coach and train others how to live at their best. So your topic of how to slow down and get more done is probably something that I've had on my own to-do list, or a should-do list for a really long time. So for me and for other people like me who are listening, can you just tell us a little bit more about what that means for, as you know, the modern busy woman? What does it mean to really slow down and actually get more done?
Okay, well, I think you should give yourself more credit, because from all of the research and everything that I have read and listened to on your site, I think you're an amazing woman, really living in your purpose. So essentially, slowing down doesn't mean sitting on the couch all day and binge watching Netflix. It's really about being in your purpose and knowing in your core first what your true values are. And it's definitely an attitude, Jen. It's a choice. It's a choice that we need to make, that I make, and it's important to see it also as that first, and live intentionally about it. Hiddy Co's key concepts of living large with less and slowing down to speed up. It doesn't mean going slow for a while so you can get faster again and more speedy in life. I mean, to speed up for me means to actually have more vitality and hunger to go after our dreams, and believing that we can change our lives if we intentionally want that, despite what has or hasn't happened. And in order to do that, I believe that we really need to first slow down and face our fears front on. And that is what puts us in the know with our own truth. And this is where I call it, and essentially all my courses are really based around this, is knowing what your meaningful mission statement is, where that comes in as we begin to let go and shed and move into an understanding of what actually living large with less can mean for us. Because often we find that the rush is an excuse to help us feel like we're actually worthy and we're valued, but really it's masking our flow and our focus. Does that make sense? So
it does.
Yeah, and so really it comes down to your purpose, facing those fears, doing the work in that space to allow you to open up and do the work that you really believe and feel in your heart and in your core that you're called to do.
So for you, it sounds like when you say living large with less, that it doesn't only mean less stuff, because yes, getting rid of stuff does feel good, but it sounds like less weight of responsibility or less on your calendar. What all does that encompass for you?
Yeah, I really spent a lot of time during my healing and my growth, because, that's to investigate these things is really where the growth happens. And living large with less is a term that I penned for myself and really built my business around. And it has nothing to do with money and materials, and it has absolutely everything to do with self-confidence and grace and integrity and having faith in yourself, faith in your beliefs of, whatever that may be for you. The lesser part of the phrase is about simplifying stuff, mental, emotional, and physical, and the larger part is about joy and peace in the everyday and the progress in the everyday. And that's ultimately what I call fulfillment. And I don't know, maybe I'm putting you on the spot by asking you this as, you know, a professional organizer. Maybe in the work that you do with people, you see that it actually is less about the stuff and it's more about the personal journey and the personal growth that people have in going through that process. And for modern women, living large with less, it means that you can let go of your losses and your heartbreaks, however they may look, because they do not define you. It's how you walk through your struggles that really defines you, and that you can choose to gently live back and gently build your self-confidence back on your own terms. You can face your challenges with grace and integrity, no matter what comes at you. And you can put your faith first, trusting that what's for you is not going to go by you. And your life in this space will be less of mental, emotional, and physical clutter, and it will be so much larger with promise and presence. And you know, living large with less is also about trust, just really trusting the process of life. It's about, you know, sort of embracing JOMO and letting go of FOMO, and knowing in your core first that slowing down to enable presence today in this moment and what you're doing right now, and not anxiety in your past or stress in your future. And where you really want your focus to be is most importantly where I believe we all need to be there. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And for those of you who are listening, Hiddy said JOMO, which is joy of missing out, which is
Yeah.
a concept very dear to my heart since I do love to stay home and not go to things. Okay, so I think one of the many things that sticks out to me about what you just said is that promise or that benefit of experiencing more self confidence, and I know that that's really appealing for not only professional organizers, obviously, but for business women and moms and all the roles that we play in our lives. So, for what are you for you? Like, what are the top 3 tips that somebody could take away from this episode of how to like actually achieve that and implement it now?
Look, I think it's most important for people to find what really resonates with them, because, you know, for me, my message is regardless of our journey so far, if any of us really want to, we can change our lives by slowing and getting present with what really matters, and just believing that the how is going to figure itself out. But and that's why I weave hope into the Hiddy Co purpose, because knowing in your core first that slowing down to enable presence now, today, in this moment, and what we're doing right now is the most important thing. So I think, you know, you find lots of different things and information out there that can offer you these tips. But for me, the top 3, my daily tips are spending time visualizing that focus and visualizing and focusing on the feeling of what, I mean, first of all, you need to know what it is that you want, and
Yes.
really fix your eyes on that. But in also, and making that measurable, you know, and not just like, I want to make this amount of money. How much money do you want to make? Or I want to lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose? Like, you really need to make these things measurable. So you need to know what it is that you want. But then first and foremost, from there, spending time visualizing and focusing on the feeling of what you want to achieve with the end in mind. Do you know what I mean? Like putting yourself in that space and really focusing and feeling the feelings associated with the success of that you want to achieve. And number 2, we all have a list a mile long of things that we want to achieve and do in a day. And I think as achievers, it's really important for us to know that we're never going to get to the end of that list. There's always going to be stuff that we want to achieve, because we want to achieve stuff, right? But, you know, really having on that list a specific actionable that's going to take you toward your vision, the thing that you're focusing and visualizing on, and something, just one step, even if it's just one step on that long list of things that's really going to action you closer toward that outcome. And to achieve those things too, the third thing that I suggest is making time in your day for you, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however that may look. It may be the gym, it may be a walk, it may be meditation, it may be yoga, it may be gardening, it may be just sitting, having a cup of tea, but just making some time for you in your day to spend on that space, on visualizing and just, knowing the action that you're going to take, and just taking some time to feel those things is really, really important. And going back to the to-do list and being an achiever, I feel like there's a huge conflict for a lot of people between growth and gratitude. Now, our pattern of focus, which is why I suggest, visualizing and focusing on that feeling of what we want to achieve with the end in mind. Our patterns of focus affect the patterns of our life, and to match our different needs, we focus on different things. So if we're constantly focused on what's missing, it's impossible to stay happy or fulfilled. And as an achievers, we usually do focus on what's missing and the next thing. So to grow, we need to focus on, yes, what's missing and the future, but we also need to make time to be in the present and be grateful for what we have right now as well.
That makes so much sense to me, and it definitely hits home when you say it's hard to convince someone that is used to going, to take one step at a time, because we want to do the whole project in one day or one sitting. And then the idea of taking 20 minutes for yourself when you have a day or more than a day, trying to pack more than you can possibly do in a day for everyone else. That's challenging. What's your best trick for convincing people to actually do that?
Well, as I said initially, it's a choice, it's an attitude. So, you can lead a horse to water, right, but you can't make it drink. So, I tie all my messages in my courses up into that one thing of making time for yourself. Ultimately, people will make their own choices. But going back to what I said before about our to-do lists and being achievers, and realizing that in that space of growth and achieving, really taking time out to be present and have gratitude and be grateful for the moment is where that blessing and that feeling of presence and not so much balance, because I really, I sort of am not an advocate for balance. I think that life, there's just ebbs and flows with life, different seasons, and you just need to sort of ebb and flow. But I think just honouring yourself and really believing that you're worth it, that it's okay to take that time. It comes from, your own values in who you are as a person, and your own self-belief and your own confidence, and being okay with, saying it is okay that I stop and take this time because I'm worth it. Do you know what I mean? I really am worth it. And the things, the couple of steps that I suggested previously, I was listening to your awesome podcast about goal setting, and I couldn't help but feel it's not dissimilar to what you really talk about spending time in that space and feeling what it is that you want to achieve. And that, at the end of the day, it's easier said than done, but really you need to give yourself that time to you're honouring yourself, you're honouring your own steps. So I think, to answer your question and to convince people, the best way that we can do that is to live it ourselves, really. As much as I tied up that message up in my courses, is just to live it and demonstrate it myself. And then, hopefully people make the right choice for themselves, because really I think it comes down to our own self-belief in who we are and value and, all of those things. I hope that answered your question
It
in a
does. It
roundabout
does.
way.
This is such good stuff. Are you loving the Pro Organizer Studio podcast? I know that's a mouthful, so we call it T-Pop for short. Help us reach new listeners and bring in even more amazing guests by leaving a review for T-Pop through your podcasting app. It truly makes our day to know that you are listening. I want to transition over to a different topic. You have an online course called 7 Days to Slow Down Fast.
Yes.
And one of your lesson modules is about money. So I am curious, because we're going to talk a little bit more about women and the need to be more financially savvy. And obviously, I know a lot of those lessons come from your own story. So can you share some information about that and just why you believe there is a need for women to be more financially savvy?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Jen, I love money. I absolutely love money, and not for the reasons that you probably think. I love it for the lessons that it teaches us. There's just
Yes.
so much in those lessons that if we really investigate that, so much for us to learn. And, my own experience, the message I really want to share with women is that here at some stage, we're all going to quite possibly face our own financial fire. And it could be, and I'm not a doomsdayer. Like for me, the glass is always half full. It's not half empty. Like I am a positive, optimistic person, regardless of what has or hasn't happened. But none of us are immune from adversity and stuff that could come up, however that may look. It could be when your partner walks out on you or the kids, or you're sitting alone in the car park and you've been made redundant, or you go to the doctor for a simple checkup, or you glance at your super statement and you wonder how on earth that you're going to afford to retire. They're all things that we really need to not spend time thinking about, but just be aware that financial fire can happen to any of us at any time. So I'm really passionate about women being financially independent. And I don't, and however that may look, whether you're in a beautiful, committed, loving, gorgeous relationship, marriage, single, however it may look for you, I think that it's really important for us, and not in a negative, selfish way, but in an empowering, self-confident way, to have to maintain, have, and build our own financial independence, because none of us know what's going to be thrown up for us to deal with. And also as mums, as business women, I think then the roll-on effect to that is to teach our children about money, like to really spend time in that space and guiding them with money lessons as well, because not feeling financial freedom and joy about money can, it can be like a random powerful concept that sort of keeps us quiet and resentful and ashamed of the fact that perhaps we've never really felt it. And some of us, it can feel like a foreign experience to our everyday, and it can make us feel like we're a big failure. We really need to, as women, stop with the excuses, every single one of them, because they're not going to protect us from that possible financial fire that may come. And I just want women to be responsible for their money and with their money. But more than anything, I want them to feel in their values and their core first that it's not only going to affect you and your money, but in all areas of your life. Particularly, again, when it comes to your self-belief, your self-confidence and your esteem. So the simple answer to that question is financial independence, even regardless of how your beautiful relationship may or may not look. I think it's really, really important for us as women.
Yeah, what I hear you saying and is definitely that it's not about preparing for some inevitable awful event, but it's more like do it for the experience of knowing what it feels like to be financially independent and that you knock on wood, would never have to fall back on it, but that you are not kind of subject to the whims of someone else or a company or the
Mm,
economy, like that type of thing. And I definitely resonate with that because one of the best parts of what I do is teaching women how to feel comfortable selling something. And I know, as basic as that sounds, it does, like you say, it teaches so many things along the way and brings up so many old money stories or things that are really
mm,
not true, and allows you to sort of face that and go, how can I bring value and how can I feel great about growing a business in this way? And the lessons that you learn along the way in charging someone a lot of money for something are much more than just about the money hitting your bank account. Like
yeah,
it's
totally.
it's knowing that you're never again going to walk through life without the knowledge of how to sell a service or anything else you want to go on and do. So I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, and I
Um,
just, yeah,
Go ahead.
our beliefs about ourselves and what's holding us back, because, really it's our self-belief that affects our momentum and our ability to move forward or not. My adversity taught me that, going after something as in rebuilding my life from scratch, but not believing that that was who I actually was because I was frightened, heartbroken, terrified. It just stopped me in my tracks. And that was a really sort of a big part of the picture, but there was a ripple on effect of, like you said, just even selling something, there's just a ripple on effect of that sort of fear into other areas of my life. So, our self belief can really affect our momentum.
For sure. Hiddy, you share some really personal stories and insights on your blog about money. And one I want to ask you about is if you'll tell us a little bit of the background. You talk about the year that you lived on less than $40,000 in a caravan with your kids. Now, to some of our listeners, they're like, "Oh, that's the dream, is to kind of like get rid of all your
It
stuff and like
was,
travel the
it was,
country."
yeah.
And what I'd like you to just share about that is just a little bit about that experience and the lessons that you learned about money through that.
Yeah, good gracious. Again, as I really investigated a lot of your content, is just so beautiful and so valuable. And I couldn't help but feel like I might get a bit teary. I was like, I think I'm a
Oh,
professional organizer too.
I think you are.
I've like professionally reorganized my whole life.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, look, um, well, I didn't have anywhere else to go. Let's just put it
Mm.
plain and simply. And I certainly wasn't gallivanting across our beautiful country,
Yes, right.
traveling. I was living at my sister's property in a tiny caravan or an RV, a retro RV, meaning, there were no mod cons, but I had a beautiful roof over my head and food in our little tiny fridge and, warm beds, and myself and my children lived, we call her Evie, and we lived in Evie during 2018 after our family home was sold. And yeah, it was incredibly challenging, but it was really liberating in so many ways too, because I just really had to let go. There were so many things I could have done. I could have kept up appearances and gone into the big house and moved back. I live in the country, and I'd made a promise to my children that they would stay in their schools and we would stay in our community that they knew. So giving them that reassurance and, comfortability was really important to me. So I had to figure it out, because, yeah, I could have gone back to the city and walked into a high paying 6-figure job, but it would have meant I would have lost so many other things. Yes, I would have gained financially, but there would have been other things that I would have lost. And I just decided to consolidate and just really spend time doing the work and letting go and having faith and knowing that, again, I was where I was, regardless of my adversity and the things that I had been through and still had to deal with and heal from, that I was where I needed to be. And that really just put me in a place of really knowing what gratitude, being grateful for the things that I had, not the things that I'd lost or didn't have. And, those things are as simple as, like I said, roof over our head, food in our fridge, beautiful, loving family close by, warm beds, my children and I were together, just that really basic stuff that I knew that even compared to some, I was so blessed, because some people don't even have that, right, Jen? So, I'd lost all this material stuff and these dreams of a life that I'd been building, but I still had so much to be grateful for. And, I spent also a lot of time, to answer your question about money, investigating money and the feelings associated with my self-belief around money, because I had a very successful life that was built around, I was the back end person, the support person that, put somebody else forward. So I am a really great support person, but, doing that work with my self-confidence and moving into a space where it was like, Hiddy, you got to step up, girl. Like, you can't, yes, you're definitely still this support person to your beautiful children, but it's now time for you to step up and lead the way. And even though I'd had this incredible globetrotting career in my 20s and 30s, it's all very well for other people to say, oh, you'll be fine. You can do anything. Like, look at what you used to do and you can do this. You've got this. But until you actually believe that yourself, yes, it matters what other people close to you think and feel and believe, because when you're not believing yourself, they're really the things that can get you through and forward. But you've got to come to a place of believing and seeing that yourself before you can actually step into your own light. Does that make sense? So living in Evie and in our caravan enabled me to do that work and work on my self-confidence, work on my belief. I let go of money and the belief, I spent a lot of time sort of saying, as I was, working to get free of my previous situation, it's not about the money, it's not about the money. And it wasn't, because I just needed my freedom and independence. But then I also realized that attaching myself to that belief, it's not about the money, it's not about the money, it actually is about the money, because money matters. So yes, it wasn't for me to get free, and it was really about my needs for survival and stepping forward into the next part of my life. But then when it was like, okay, now it's time to step up, it is about the money, because money matters. And now I have to be, this person that makes the money and generates money. So I had to, believe that I was capable and had the potential to do that. So, it was very liberating, very freeing, very confronting. But, it was a stepping stone. It was a stepping stone for us. And my children embraced it. We just all embraced it. And, like I said, our basic needs to survive were covered. And I felt really blessed by that. And it was a foundation for me and us to take our next step forward.
So if someone's listening right now and they're really hearing you, and I love the way you said it, that, money does matter, and it is a thing, and it's about more than just the visible cash. Like, it's about a lot more going on with you as a person. What would you say to someone who's listening who might feel a bit stuck in her money and financial life right now?
You've really got to just do the inner work. Look at that. Look at the self-belief and the mindset around that, because having scarcity mindset around money is, we attach it to the money, but it's such a personal, it's more of a personal thing. So doing the work around that and investigating that is really, really important. And finding the person or the people that can help you do that work. And it's probably two things, because I also think too is to make learning about money a priority. Find a money mentor, study it, implement it, teach your kids. Personally for me, my immediate focus was survival, but then you really need to get a handle on your figures, good, bad, or ugly. You need to know where you sit financially, and just make learning about money a priority. So yeah, definitely the inner work, the attachment that we have, it would be number one. But then, and doing that work, but then, definitely, learning about money and finding a good money mentor and studying it and implementing things.
Do you think that avoiding money and kind of hiding from money and not learning about money is one of the biggest signs of having a scarcity mindset?
Oh, totally. That's fear, right? I just think that is just fear.
Or telling yourself that money is not important to me, I don't need money.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of things are so you are kind of, you've seen that there are layers beyond that where actually it's, like you said, sort of an avoidance of wanting to face something that actually can bring a lot of inner confidence and inner security, in your work, in yourself, like investing in that for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. It's money is not, money matters. Money definitely matters. It's a commodity that the basic necessities cover the basic necessities, have luxuries in life, whatever. But it's our attitude about it, whether you're materialistic or not materialistic about it, that really matters. And that comes from further inner stuff. So, flipping that switch for me was one thing where I was like, spent a lot of time saying money didn't matter. It didn't. And at that particular time, it didn't, because I just needed to really get free and get independent. But then I realized that it did matter. Like, I had to stop saying money doesn't matter, because money so matters, the lessons around it, and the belief that we attach to it, our own self-belief that we attach to it. So definitely matters. So yes, and I think not in spending time going there is just burying our head in the sand and not facing our fears, which is why, again, financial independence as women is really, really important. And the overarching thing for me is slowing down and spending time facing our fears and uncovering what it is that we feel, why we feel it, and realizing that these are areas that we need to do work on.
Okay, I feel like we could talk all day long about because all of these topics, they're so tied together in so many ways.
Yeah.
And we didn't really have a chance to touch much on, parenting and how you've changed as a mom over the last few years. But one question I do want to ask you, because again, I know this is something that often I've noticed that women sometimes, we're kind of on our own financial journey, and we invest in like self-help and awareness, and we're sort of on our own financial journeys even. But we often won't take real action to solve our personal issues. And this is true for organizing clients. This is true for business coaching clients. It's like what really motivates us is when we realize we're like, oh no, if I don't do something about this for myself, if I don't do my own work, I won't have real skills and lessons to pass on to my children. And that's what finally will push them into action, whether it's them finally calling an organizer to get organized because they realize what a big effect it's having on their kids. They'll do it for their kids. They won't quite go all the way for themselves. And or something similar can come up even with very savvy professional organizers, savvy business women. They're kind of like, I don't want to really invest or figure out my money mindset crap until I realize, oh, I really want to be able to pass on positive money stories to my kids that we didn't necessarily get from our parents, or certainly not from our schools and our education. So with all that being said, and I know this is a huge topic, what is something that is a takeaway for you with what you're children have learned, whether you've said it or just lived it out as an example, what have your kids, taken away already that you think will stick with them for the rest of their lives about finances?
I'm really intentional, and I mean, on a weekly basis, we have some really strong rituals in our family around money and my children. Like my son, he's a young teenager, he's just got his first part-time job. Bless, I'm so proud of him. And but I've
Yeah.
always, you know, done the pocket money thing, and that's not for everybody either. But we now live again on a rural property. There's a lot of jobs to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they've always done work as a family team, and that's how I share it with them. It's, we're a team, guys. Like, it takes all of us to make this stuff happen. And I'm here, of course, like, as mums, we're there to support
Mm-hmm.
our children, but you need that support back. So I teach my children about obviously the jobs they need to do each week just to support me. So then we're really intentional about where that money goes, what they do with their money each week. And I think, look, there's so much just in that question, but
I
to
know.
give you one thing, actually, the one thing is the way we divvy our money up, and they divvy their money up. Yes, they save. Yes, they have money that they spend, but they also have a certain allocation to giving and gifting. And I personally, honestly think that that is where there's a lot of power in money,
Mm.
in giving, and just that you give, you will receive. And so, yes, being organized with money and saving and all of that is, just as important, but also having a certain portion of giving. And it's like, I really believe that finding somebody less off than yourself and helping them will really put you in a beautiful, grateful place in your heart. So however that may look for you, and that's just something that, in a world that can be very materialistic and over informative, really keeping my children focused and centered on giving and allocating some of their money toward that would probably be my number one out of a long list of things that are
Mm.
very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a really good tip, and I know it will resonate with the women listening to this who are remembering. They're like, oh yes, that's important to me. That's a priority. Um, and they're going to be remembering as a whole, just from this whole episode, the importance of slowing down and just giving themselves a break sometimes, which I'm always in favor of that. But it's nice to hear it from another perspective. So, Hiddy, can you please share with us? And guys, we'll put this in the show notes too, in case you're listening on the go and can't type this in or click a link now. But how can they learn more about 7 Days to Slow Down Fast, your other courses, just where to find you on Instagram, all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm Hiddy Co, HIDDYANDCO, on the web, on Facebook, and on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some great downloadable tools, free tools. I have some workshops available, and my main course is 7 Days to Slow Down Fast. But I've also got some other things in the pipeline. So yeah, and Jen, I have a promo code I'd love to offer any of your listeners if they jump onto my
Awesome.
website on hiddyandco.com, and pop in to any of my courses. Actually, 25 off Hiddy into the promo code. So that's just 25OFF HIDDY at checkout. It will give 25% off any of my courses, and I'd love to extend that to any of your listeners.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. You're so generous
Pleasure.
and
Pleasure.
that's
Thank
incredible.
you.
I want to encourage everyone who's listening too, that taking the time to slow down and even investing, into your self-care in this way, it not only multiplies, of course, for you on a personal level, but this is something that organizers really bring with them as a person into their business as well. And so when you guys are thinking about creating that brand or creating that experience, like you want to be that person who is really pouring from a full cup and who invests in themselves the same way that you're asking your clients to invest with you. So this is one small way that you guys can do that right away, and sort of take inventory on not only money, but the other ways that you're spending your time and schedule and life energy. So Hiddy, this was wonderful. What's the final takeaway message that you just want to make sure that everyone walks away with today?
Oh gosh, look, I think we know life's fast, it's getting faster, but we weren't born into this rushing state. And how we spend our time, it's entirely our choice. Our perception of who we need to be and what we need to do, it's definitely influenced by both our biochemistry, the things that we're putting into our body, but also our beliefs. And I think it's really important for women more than ever to prioritize rest and relaxation, because they need to believe that they're absolutely worth it. And because the rate of change in the world today, our bodies, we're not going to keep up with the mental talk that we tell ourselves otherwise. So just really believing that you're worth it, busy mums, busy business ladies, and just giving yourself that time, because how you choose to spend your time, obviously that's entirely up to you.
Amazing. What a just really, truly, it's a good feeling message, because it's part of our self-growth and kind of like, what we're here to do in our lives. And so it's much more than about business, but it's about that too. So I appreciate everything you've shared today. Hiddy, I feel like we could do a whole series. We could do a whole series on topics, but thank you so much for being here. And if you guys have not joined our podcast group yet, and especially if you're part of our Australian audience, because I know you all are out there, please join our podcast group on Facebook, and in there you can comment on the episode and say hi to Hiddy and connect with each other. That's just another kind of value add for the Pro Organizer Studio podcast that I just want to make sure that you guys know about if you didn't before. So thank you again, Hiddy, for being here, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast. If you'd like to learn more about time-saving services and resources for professional organizers, visit www.proorganizerstudio.com. And if you'd like to get Jen's roadmap to success for launching and growing your professional organizing business, go straight to www.poroadmap.com.